Group Judicial Watch says the FBI has now found some new documents on that controversial 2016 Tarmac meeting between former President Bill Clinton and then Attorney General Loretta Lynch. This was after the FBI previously said it didn't have any documents with that. The meeting came at the height of the Hillary Clinton email probe and fueled Republican speculation that the Clintons were trying to influence the outcome of that investigation. Meanwhile, Lynch will reportedly be grilled on Capitol Hill this week. She'll testify. House and Senate lawmakers will look into the Russian interference of the presidential election last year. Let's bring in now Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, good to have you today. Let's start with the basics. What did we learn from these documents?
Well, we haven't gotten them yet. The FBI, when we had sued for them, they did supposedly a search, and they told us at the beginning of the year they didn't have anything. We had another lawsuit against the Justice Department for records about this Clinton-Lynch Tarmac meeting. And we did get documents from the Justice Department that showed that they were in communication with top officials of the FBI. So, lo and behold, the FBI comes back to us and says, we're going to reopen your FOIA. Actually, it was never closed since we were in litigation. And just the other day, they told us they found 30 pages of records that they need or they want until November 30th to give us the records. And we don't know what's going to be in the records, whether they're going to be all blacked out. But if I were the president, I'd be asking both the leadership of the FBI and Justice Department, what is going on here? What's with the stalling and what's with the obstruction? Because there may be an innocent explanation as to why these records were missing. But I find that to be a highly unlikely possibility.
All right. So they told you that you have to wait until late November. You don't know what these documents are actually going to look like because you don't have them now to compare them to what they'll look like after they're redacted. So you won't know what you're missing. So in the meantime, you want the president to step in. Is this something that Judicial Watch then makes a point with the White House, or do you just hope for the best?
Oh, we've previously told the White House that they should take the approach of extreme transparency on these corruption issues. And my view is the deep state doesn't want to release these records. You see it with the Clinton issues, you see it with the Obama issues, and you frankly see it with the Trump-Russia issues, because I think they know releasing the records would hurt people they like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, and hurt people they don't like President Trump.
And when you talk with White House officials or whomever you've talked with, what have you been told in the past, or are you hoping to have some fresh conversations now? Because now the game has changed. Now the FBI has found something it said it didn't have.
You know, they hold their cards close to the vest. I think the White House probably would want to see the information released, but it's not clear to me the deep state wants to get it done. And at this point, you have to wonder whether it's just plain insubordination by top officials at Justice and FBI in terms of withholding information we have a right to under the law.
What about, and we were reporting this on Outnumbered when it happened, because it broke live during our hour last year. What about Lynch telling Comey, former FBI Director James Comey, to refer to Hillary Clinton's email scandal as just a matter and not an investigation?
Well, you know, that communication, if it happened and there are records about it, would be covered by this lawsuit. We haven't seen it yet. We've asked for the FBI records about the Clinton investigation. And we've gotten records, but they've only released about half of the records they have. So for every record they give us, they withhold another one. Again, this is why the administration at the top levels needs to pay attention to this issue, because this corruption is a major issue for the American people. And this is why people like Jeff Sessions and the new FBI director have their jobs, is because people wanted the swamp to be drained. And when you get this obstruction, Harris, this is the sort of thing that drives people crazy, because they know the records can be released. We're not asking for state secrets. We want to know what the government was up to on this corruption issue.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you put it in that way, because they certainly have not labeled it this way, the FBI or anybody else. Real quickly before I let you go, and I hear you wanting to give the FBI agents maybe a benefit of the doubt. Maybe somebody went rogue, maybe somebody made a mistake, whatever it may be. But the point is, and what the American people might want to ask is, what significance is this when you talk about a cover-up?
You know, when we asked the State Department for records, they said they looked everywhere. They didn't have Hillary Clinton emails. And it was Judicial Watch FOIA litigation that forced their hand and forced them to disclose that they had all these Clinton emails. This reminds me of that, to be frank. That's what this reminds me of. The FBI only gave us, coughed up these records, or will cough up some of these records in the least, I hope, only because we caught them red-handed in another FOIA lawsuit. It's really troubling.
Tom Fitton of the Judicial Watch, we'll check back with you as we get closer to that deadline when the FBI says they're going to hand.
I want to congratulate the House of Representatives for passing a vital and historic tax cut last week, and I'm very hopeful the Senate will do the same very soon. We're going to give the American people a huge tax cut for Christmas. Hopefully that will be a great, big, beautiful Christmas present.
President Trump speaking on tax reform in a cabinet meeting a short time ago. Sandra's making me laugh. It's her fault. Those comments as Senate lawmakers are set for a showdown on taxes, now planning to vote on their bill after Thanksgiving. The slim Republican majority means they can only afford to lose 2 votes. We know several GOP senators are on the fence, including Susan Collins of Maine, who says she likes a few things in the House bill better than the Senate plan, like permanent cuts for individuals and a slightly higher corporate tax rate.
Good Lord.
I haven't reached that conclusion yet because I think there are going to be further changes. But the biggest mistake was putting in a provision from the Affordable Care Act into the Senate bill that's not in the House bill. And I hope that will be dropped, or that bills that have been introduced by Senators Alexander Murray and Bill Nelson and myself will be adopted to mitigate the impact of those provisions.
Collins says repealing the Obamacare mandate in the tax bill is a bad idea. You just heard that. It's something the Trump administration is pushing for hard, but apparently not at the expense of derailing tax reform. Listen to Budget Director Mick Mulvaney.
I don't think anybody doubts where the White House is on repealing and replacing Obamacare. We absolutely want to do it. If we can repeal part of Obamacare as part of a tax bill and have a tax bill that is still a good tax bill that can pass, that's great. If it becomes an impediment to getting the best tax bill we can, then we're okay with taking it out. So I think it's up to the Senate and the House to sort of hammer out those details.
But every time they talk about tinkering with something in and out or whatever, you have to remember there's math behind that. And by if they get rid of repealing the mandate, that screws up the math.
To keep it real simple, when they pass a budget, they set the number for reconciliation. So this $1.5 trillion is not some arbitrary number. It's a number that the Senate came up with. They could have picked $3 trillion. They could have picked whatever number they wanted. So they're stuck with this 1.5 in order to make the 10-year math work. And that's why there's all this jockeying back and forth. What I personally would like to see is the United States Senate vote on the House bill. The House bill had, a very impressive vote.
That would have passed?
But put it up. What's more frustrating to me as a former member of Congress, and I think to the American people, is when they don't vote. Put people on the record. Let's see who actually is opposed to cutting taxes on Americans. And some of these people are arguing that we have to pay for these tax cuts. Since when do you have to pay, quote unquote, pay to allow people to keep their own money in their own wallet? If they wanted to do that, they shouldn't have passed a $47 trillion 10-year budget. They needed to cut spending.
Exactly. They need to cut spending because you hear this term revenue neutrality. That's the money that you're bringing in. We should be talking about deficit neutrality. That's the money that you're spending and overcommitting that money that you're going to have to borrow on in the future. Cutting out the individual mandate helps them philosophically, but it also helps them with reconciliation. There are so many other areas where they could cut money from programs.
They just
don't have the political will to do it.
They all voted for a $47 billion 10-year budget.
They can do it when they pass the budget. He's absolutely right about that. When they go and they tinker with the budget, that's why you saw so many cost cutters in the House vote against the bill, not for taxes, but because it's immoral to spend money you don't have.
Another thing that Susan Collins said she found wrong with the current Senate plan, that the cut to the corporate tax rate is too low, 20%.
I don't get that.
I don't understand that. Why it's so hard for Republicans to cut taxes? The president has said, cut the corporate tax, make sure the middle class gets a tax relief. His objectives are pretty clear, and they can't see.
Katie, it's so frustrating to see people befuddled by the rules they themselves created.
Well,
that's what's amazing to me with these lawmakers.
Well, the interesting thing with Senator Collins going after the corporate tax rate, when there's all these other things the White House is willing to negotiate on, the White House has made it very clear that the corporate tax rate is a red line. They are not willing to go above what they have offered and put on the table for the plan that they want, for the structure that the president put forward that has now been made into 2 different pieces of legislation. So for her to go after that, indicates to me that she's not exactly
She's just a no.
interested. Right,
And
she's
maybe
not interested
people
in
in
actually
Maine
negotiating
will
the
start
rest of the bill.
corporations. Maybe they'll start businesses if there's this attractive low corporate rate.
There you go.